how do you just get off the, oh, every day is every day to, I love my life. I love doing what I'm doing.
You're listening to Overwhelmed Working Woman, the podcast that helps you be more calm and more productive by doing less. I'm your host, Michelle Gauthier, a former overwhelmed working woman and current life coach. On this show, we unpack the stress and pressure that today's working woman experiences. And in each episode, you'll get a strategy to bring more calm, ease, and relaxation to your life. Hi, friend. Thanks for joining today. Today, you're going to learn about something really cool, which is positive psychology. Today's guest, Karli Auble, is not only an engineer, but also a positive psychology speaker. And she created something called the Thrive Framework. That's a powerful mindset tool. So today, when you listen, you'll learn how the science of positive psychology can help you, even if you work in a high-stress environment. We're going to learn about Karli's 6-part Thrive Framework and how to apply it to any challenge. And she's also going to talk to us about why our thoughts, our relationships, and even your workspace all matter more than you probably think. Karli talks about these topics at organizations and events. So if you are looking for an interesting speaker for your group or event, at the end, you will hear how to get in touch with Karli. Today's episode is sponsored by Cozy Earth. You know what Cozy Earth has to do with overwhelm? My favorite overwhelmed working women? Their whole mission is to make every day feel a little bit more elevated through their obsessive detail and better materials and super high quality products, so that when you've had a really busy day at work and you come home and you change into your bamboo pajama set, or you grab your Cozy Earth cuddle blanket, or you get in between the sheets when you're ready to go to bed at night, you can feel calm and well taken care of. And a friend of mine just told me that she bought some Cozy Earth pajamas and the sheets because she thought of it as a form of self-care. And I really think that is true. I also think the best way to give yourself self-care is to get good sleep. And we all know when you're busy and overwhelmed and potentially going through some hormonal changes, that sleep is not always easy. And I can tell you for sure from my experience, when I get in my Cozy Earth pajamas, my Cozy Earth sheets, and I've got that heavy blanket on top of me and my house turned down to freezing like I like it, I truly sleep better and I wake up so cozy. So if you feel like you could use a little extra TLC and you want to get yourself a treat, use my code OWW for Overwhelmed Working Woman for 20% off anything Cozy Earth. There are so many fantastic options, but I highly recommend the pajamas, the cuddle blanket, and the sheets for sure. All right, let's jump in and welcome our guest, Karli Auble. Thank you so much, Karli, for being here with us today. I'm so happy to have you, and I'm excited for you to teach us about positive psychology. It's an area that I don't know very much about, and I remember when I learned you were getting your master's in it, I was like, ooh, I want all that information in my brain. So I'm excited for you to teach us a little bit about it today and teach us your Thrive framework. So start off by telling us, because really your regular day job is not in positive psychology. So tell us about yourself, how you got into this, and what you're doing with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Michelle. One, I'm happy to be here. Two, I do have to say that you could be a positive psychology professor. So I'm so excited to tell you more about it and how the people listening essentially get a master's in positive psychology.
Amazing. And I didn't even have to go to school. Sounds great.
It's awesome. Yes. So my name's Karli Auble. I have a background in engineering, so systems engineering. I work at a large company where I'm an engineering manager. And as I was getting ready to work towards my executive MBA, I actually had the opportunity to have a career coach at my company. And I'm talking to my career coach. She's like, "Are you excited about signing up?" I was just like, "Absolutely not. I'm dreading going to this every Saturday executive MBA program. Why are you doing it?" She asked me. And I said, "That's what everybody else here does. And that's the path that we have to go down." So any good coach would say, "Hey, what's something that you would be interested in?" And so I started looking at different programs and thinking, what would I be interested in? I had been exposed to coaching through her being my coach. Fun fact, Michelle is actually my husband's life coach. I had seen various pockets and I was fascinated how people that were working in that coaching relationship could change their mindset so quick. And I thought, how cool would that be to apply that into the engineering workspace? It's a bit unusual, but I requested an exception to get a master's in positive psychology. I had to go through an exception process, which again, thought process, you're like, nobody's going to approve me to do this as an engineer. Went forward with it, submitted it, and in 30 seconds had an approval back from my manager and his boss as well.
Oh my
And
gosh, that is surprising because I would bet in engineering, they're not like, you know what we need? Some good mindsets and positivity around here.
yeah, I put so much thought into what am I going to write in this exception, put it in there. And then as I explained it to my manager and his boss, it was like, oh, yeah, done, approved. I just think from a coaching perspective and that mindset shift, I looked so forward to the coursework. I loved hopping in the car and listening to lectures to and from work. And I just think, wow, what a difference that would have been had I gone forward with the executive MBA versus this positive psychology degree.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
so there's lesson number 1 from Carly. Trust your gut. If something doesn't sound like fun for you, it's okay that it's not for you, and there probably is something interesting. So before you even get into what you're gonna teach us, that's a great example, even
yes.
if you're working in an industry where that's not the traditional path.
Absolutely. Yeah, I got into positive psychology. As I started taking the course, I started working on a capstone project and I kept coming back to I want to create this course on labor because there's so much from a mindset perspective that goes into childbirth and labor that I had seen in the past. So as these lessons would come up, I'm like, oh, you could so apply that to labor. But no, I'm not going to do it. Let me stop. Let me apply it to engineering organization. And I
Mhm.
finally had one professor that, as I was starting to work towards my capstone, he was like, what would you want to do? I explained it, but I'm going to shift back and do it all towards work. And he was like, hey, Carly, is there no women engineers that ever have babies? And I was like, yeah, we all do. And he was like, so could you offer this to your organization? And I'm like, oh my gosh, it would make me so uncomfortable if I did that, right? Because nobody is out there offering childbirth classes. And he was like, I think you totally should do it. Do it, do the research on it. You're obviously very passionate about it. So I created a positive childbirth class, all rooted in positive psychology. And I offered it to my company. They ended up offering it to not just US, but all the other countries that we're involved with as well. So we had women in Europe and we had individuals all over the country taking it. And it was so cool. We ended up having over 30 people in that original class, most from my company. And just to see the impact that had for people reaching out, that was like, I can't believe that this is something our company is allowing us to do. I've learned so much mindset. Hey, I'm using this now as I come back to work, all these mindset shifts. It was a lot of fun. That's how I originally got into it. And now have just continued to share the message of positive psychology, even after childbirth, and how you can incorporate it into your day to day at work as well.
That's so great. So what you're saying, another good example of, okay, I should do this thing, but then your body and your mind were telling you this is where it's really needed. And you gave yourself permission with a little encouragement from somebody, which never hurts anything, to do
Mhm.
what you really wanted to do because you had a passion for having positive childbirth experiences. And then you realized that this Thrive framework could be helpful for childbirth. And these people are telling you that was helpful, but also it's helping me just in my everyday life, which is why I thought it would be great to have you on the podcast. So maybe somebody will use this for their childbirth, but maybe they'll just use it for whatever challenge they're having today. Like my challenge is, how am I going to help my 18-year-old decide if he wants to go to college or do something else next year? This is so stressful. So, no matter what your challenge is, it sounds like this could be a good framework to use.
Yeah, I think the first realization for me was a dear friend of mine was writing this book and she was inviting women from across different areas in STEM. So, not only where they were in their career in STEM, but also did they have kids? Did they not have kids? All of these different factors. She was inviting us to write chapters in her book on what it's like to be a woman in STEM. And I remember thinking like, gosh, yeah, I could use different examples, but I'm not sure. And I had this moment of imposter syndrome where I'm like on this work trip trip, thinking about what am I going to write about, and then having all these feelings of missing home and just getting back into work. And then New Year's rolled around and I had just had this long extended break with my kids. And I remember just bawling, thinking about, oh my gosh, I have to go back to work tomorrow. I don't want to go back to work tomorrow. I'm thinking about this book. What in the world am I going to write in this book? Am I a fraud because I'm like helping people, women in STEM, but I'm feeling this way myself? And then I was thinking about the Thrive framework and I'm like, my gosh, I need the Thrive framework myself in this moment right now. Like my thoughts, my habits, my relationships that I have at work, the instincts, what am I valuing and the environment around me? And I was like, I could use this framework that I had set up for childbirth in my own work environment. So let's experiment with it. And then I'll write the chapter around it. And I did. And it was just so interesting. We can hop into any of those sections, but the first one is your thoughts, right? And what are my thoughts? What are your thoughts around your child in college or no at college? And my thoughts repetitive, just like, I can't go in the office tomorrow. I don't want to be in the office. I don't want to work. And I think that was the first thing that snapped me out of it. I'm not going to be a stay-at-home mom. So what is it? What are these thoughts? What am I telling myself? And are they really true or not? So that was the first positive psychology lesson where I was like, oh, can I apply these other areas of the Thrive framework? And sure enough, every section I was like, yes, I do need to change my habits. I do need to change my relationships, and going down the line and realizing that it was very applicable, not only to labor, but any challenge that you're approaching.
Yes. Okay. So I want you to finish talking us through your example and going through the whole Thrive. But real quick, tell us the name of the book that you wrote the chapter in.
The book is Beyond the Pipeline. Women in STEM, everybody is saying that there's this leaky pipeline and that women are leaving STEM careers. And how do we keep women in STEM? And so it's really all women talking about their experience, some that have completely left the field, some that have chosen to stay in, talking about their experiences as a mom, as not a mom, things that they sacrificed to stay in STEM. Michelle, we've talked about leave and how much time we get as well. It's really interesting. There's, I believe, over 20 authors that had a chance to write in it. And my chapter is on surviving to thriving.
Oh, that's great. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah,
Okay. How do we thrive?
positive psychology, right? Everybody has this. When I say positive psychology, they're like, so everything's sunshine and rainbows. And this is where I'm like, Michelle, you could be a positive psychology professor. It's not that life should be all sunshine and rainbows, but it's how do you deal with the hard times when they come through? So over 20 years ago, Dr. Martin Seligman became the president of the APA. And he made a call to all the psychologists that was like, hey, we focus so much on diagnosing people and what's wrong with people, what mental illness do they have, but we don't really focus on how do we get people to go from just being content in life to thriving. And so that's where the Thrive acronym first came into my mind, the words like flourishing or thriving. So how do you just get off the, oh, every day is every day to I love my life. I love doing what I'm doing.
I also think like that idea of I really want to have a life that I absolutely love, not just a life that's every day is okay. And it seems like most people don't even consider that or give themselves permission to even want that. Like, well, it's supposed to be hard. Work's supposed to be hard. Life's supposed to be hard, but not so, say Carly and Michelle.
Yeah, exactly. Think of had I gone down that path of the executive MBA, I would be doing the same thing like ho hum, going into work, climbing the ladder. And this has just brought so many flowers and new things into my life. So the thought that was going in my head was like, I hate my job. Everything is terrible. I don't want to go back into the office. Again, the thought that kind of snapped me out of that was maybe I want to stay at home with my kids, which I'm like, realistically, I know that's not me inherently. And God bless everybody that does, because I think that's the hardest job in the world. And I started checking myself like, these thoughts aren't even true. What is true for me? I just had this incredible, long, extended period with my kids. I enjoyed every moment most of the time, right? Let's be honest, there were some terrible times, but I enjoyed it so much.
Two wild boys
Yeah.
in the toddler phase. I'm
Yes.
sure it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows, but some.
Yes, exactly. I do love a lot of things about my career. I love that I have a consistent paycheck. I love some of my peers. There are a lot of things that I'm looking forward to going back for. It's just I'm having these thoughts and what can I do to change those thoughts? Focusing more on the positives of my job helped pull me out of that spiral. That was the first step. The next one is habits. And there's many ways that you can go from a habit perspective, but going down the thought train, it's really important to understand You have anywhere from 12,000 to 60,000 thoughts a day. And from a habit perspective, when you have a thought, it's like you're going down a pathway. And if you're looking at one trail that is completely a beaten path and it looks easy to walk down, you're going to inherently go down that path versus the one that has bushes and shrubs and everything over it. So think of that from like your thought process. If you inherently come up to something and you're like, I hate my job, that path is going to widen. This is scientifically in your brain. Those networks are going to get wider and easier for you to just navigate to. So I started realizing when I came back to work that I have those thought patterns over and over. I hate this job. I hate these people. All of these negative things that were getting really easy for me to just default to. There's a lot of different studies that they've had, but one habit of gratitude can really pull you out of that. So 3 things a day in the morning, I would just write down, what are 3 things about today that are great? Like a coworker brought in this really nice coffee, or I had an hour of quiet time before anybody got to me, or my kids all went off and they didn't yell at me for the shoes that they were wearing, or whatever little thing I could think of. And you could really tell the difference of that one simple habit making that positive pathway larger so that when I got in, I wasn't just like immediately, everything is bad. This is all terrible. My life is falling apart.
Yes, that's so great. Such a good example. And our brain just loves the familiar. It doesn't love what's better for us. It's just what's the path of least resistance? Oh, yeah, I hate my job. I hate these people. It's so easy. That's a great way to pull yourself out of it. It is amazing. Just this morning, I was writing down the 3 gratitude things. And before that, I was just in a little bit of a funky mood. And I wrote down 1 and then 2. And I was like, it's crazy how well this actually works. I don't even remember right now what I wrote down, but it was all of a sudden I was just elevated. It just
Yes.
worked.
Yes. And that's what I could geek out about this from like a positive psychology standpoint. But if you dive into the studies, like depression is decreased, anxiety is decreased, like all of these super incredible things can happen from that one small little habit. So highly recommend that. I think you even have a sheet that people can go online and
Yeah.
grab. Is
Yes,
that
exactly. I have a morning routine that includes that because I think it's so important. Okay, I love it. So we got the T, we got the H. Now, relationships, is that what you said the R was?
Yeah, when I think of birth and relationships, there's all the relationships that you should think of, like birth partner, doula. And then as I started to think about it from a work perspective, all of the people that I had been relying on from a mentor perspective weren't really people that reflect my life. And being a woman in STEM, that can be challenging. If I looked around, my peers were people with stay at home moms. There were people that had kids that were in college, people that chose not to have kids. And I was like this oddball person that had 2 crazy kids and another on the way. And I wasn't really able to have those like reflective periods of, I feel like my values are off, or I felt like I couldn't share some of those things with them. So being really intentional about seeking out women that had careers that I aspired to and being like, how do you do it? And we always think, oh, I can't reach out to that person because they're so high up. But I have never felt like that person didn't just welcome that with open arms. And a lot of times, like those people are lonelier. Like I admitted, hey, I feel really lonely in this class. And I remember this director was like, I feel even lonelier. Like I remember how you felt and I felt the same, but I feel even more so now. So having you reach out really benefited me too.
Oh, that's so nice.
Yeah.
And it's amazing when you share a little bit of something vulnerable, how it really encourages the other person to do the same.
If anybody wants to do a positive psychology activity, finding somebody that you really admire and writing a note, like a heartfelt, hey, I have these memories or this is where this came from. And then not only delivering it, but delivering it and reading it to them, which is super uncomfortable.
Oh my gosh.
But there's a ton of studies on this as well. And the benefit that you get, that's the longest lasting benefit that you can have of joy and happiness. Sometimes can last weeks, if not months. That daily
Interesting.
habit reset is really great when you're thinking of top 3 things you're grateful for, but actually delivering it, reading it can be a lasting impact for you. And then not only the benefit that the receiver gets as well.
Yeah, but that's interesting that the true benefit is to the giver. The receiver, yes, of course, they're thinking that's great, but who did you do yours to?
I did mine to Becky Vollmer. She's an author that is in St. Louis. She has a book called You Are Not Stuck. I saw this book in the Webster Kirkwood Times in our area, and I'm like, wow, I'm a self-help book junkie. Of course, I should read this. Read it, and I just felt such a kindred spirit to her, like the way she writes about her corporate environment and what she was going through as a woman and how she created her own thing. And I remember being like, I'm going to write this note, but I can't reach out to Becky Vollmer. I don't know her. Like all of these things, did it anyways, got coffee with her, and she's an incredible person. And
Oh my gosh, you got coffee with her. How
yeah,
fun.
I also did a note to my grandma, and that was a really interesting thing, and did the whole in person. And I'm one of those people where I'm like, I'm not a crier. I'm not going to cry when I deliver this note. And then, of course, it's weird. It's vulnerable. It's
Yeah.
uncomfortable. And just tears are flowing. And yeah.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I challenge everyone listening to do this. I love that. I'm going to do it.
So I is instincts. I'll geek out on people real quick. I'm in the aerospace industry. In an airplane, there are many systems that have to work together. I encourage people to think of their bodies as an aircraft. You have all of these systems that are working together, the sensors, the computer, and there are error codes that will pop up and say, hey, something is not right. We have to look up what's going on and then fix the problem. If you have all these error codes popping up and you're not doing anything about it, it can be detrimental to the aircraft, to the pilots, to everybody involved. And I had this moment sitting in a meeting when we were talking about these error codes. And I was like, the day before I had left work and I was just like, called my husband. I'm like, my shoulders are up to my ears. And I was noticing that every day as I'm leaving, I'm just like, my shoulders are here. And I never even knew like, how did they get here? But they're here and they're stuck and I just need time to decompress. And I was in this meeting and I'm like, I'm not listening to my own error codes all day. So it's not until I like shut the laptop, walk outside, sit in my car that I'm like, oh, there's a problem here. So I started to really just listen to my body throughout meetings. I was noticing that as somebody is talking or giving feedback, I would start to feel like my heart start racing. I would see my cheeks are starting to blush on our Zoom call or whatever it might be. But I wasn't listening to those all day. So when those things would happen, I would change something in my environment. One of the best things you can do is the box breath, which I know you've talked about on here before, Michelle, too. You breathe in for a count of 4, hold for a count of 4, breathe out for a count of 4, and then hold for another count of 4. It's something easily accessible. You can do any day. You can do it in a work meeting. Nobody can even notice. And that was really instincts, just listening to your body, making the changes that you needed to so that when you leave, you don't have your shoulders up next to your ears. This
Yes.
catastrophic burnout.
Yes, yes, that was such a good catch because if you would have just not noticed that and kept those up, who knows what could have happened. I
Yep.
feel like eventually stuff like that goes to our body and you get extreme burnout where you can't do anything. So, good catch on that. That's great. And I do think we all have instincts when something is off or something's not working and
Hmm.
we can bury it, push it down, shove it to the
Yeah.
back of our mind.
Yeah. And that's where, and think back to your relationships there too. If I had the instinct that I didn't want to do this executive MBA, if I didn't have a coach, I don't know that I would have been listening to my instincts. So that's where those relationships and taking advantage of that come in play so well. And like Michelle, my husband coaching with you, I feel like what instincts would he not have listened to if he didn't have somebody there to pull those out? So again,
Yes.
that's just another plug for the relationships and making sure that people are fully supported so that they are listening to those things and they're not just leaving work with their ears next to their shoulders and saying, that's life.
Yes, exactly. And I think you gave some examples too, where if you have a mentor, we used to get mentors assigned at work too. If you have a mentor who can maybe help you with work stuff, but isn't the mentor that you're looking for, and if you don't have the luck to have a coach at work, you could either find a coach outside or just ask someone. That was my favorite thing at work when I got to mentor someone, who, because I've already been there, I've already gone through the pain, I've already figured it out. Let me help you. So I feel like make it your own responsibility to get a mentor for yourself that you really feel like is a fit for you, even if your company doesn't do it for you.
Exactly. After instincts, it's values. One of the positive psychology practices or assignments that we were given were to have the wheel of life done one of
Yeah, I
those.
use that all the time. Yeah.
So you have this circle, and around the edges, there's things like career, money, relationships, spirituality, and you show where you are with that. That's really eye opening, right? To see, where you are and if you're living towards your values. And I talk about the example from work where mine were really tested. They were being tested big time. So at the time my husband was traveling for work, I had 2 kids. Drop off was madness. It's 2 different places. Again, I was in this engineering management role where every meeting started at 7:30 in the morning.
How convenient for all the parents.
Yeah. My best effort that I could do because of the way that daycare opened up was if all cylinders were firing, right? I could drop my baby off at daycare at 7 a.m., which is wild, period. I would then go to the other school, be in the parking lot waiting for them to unlock the doors, drop off at 7:30, and then while all my peers were like butt in seat with coffee in hand, I would join the call from 7:30 to 8 a.m., scrambling in the car, listening to the call on Zoom and feeling just like a failure from the beginning. And so when I look at the values, I remember I had a mentor that had mentioned like, "Hey, why don't you outsource your mornings? You're a manager, you can figure that out. Like just outsource them." And I remember thinking, man, I love my job, but I already feel like I'm squeezed from a family time to begin with. So even though those mornings are crazy and chaotic, like those are still my mornings and I still get that time. And that was something that if I were to outsource that, it would feel like I'm sacrificing something that I value that's really high on my value list. So instead, I talked to my manager and I just shared like, hey, this is what my morning looks like. And I'm trying really hard. And I'll never forget, he was like, how about 8 o'clock? And even if you come in at 8:05, that works for all of us. It's fine. It's no big deal. I'm like,
Oh my
yeah,
gosh.
that sounds great. We had the hard conversation, changed the meetings to 8 a.m. And my peer who does have young kids was like, oh, I was able to drop my kids off and my wife really appreciates it. I didn't know you were the person that made that change. Thanks for that. So again, yeah, just really sticking with your values and trusting your instincts on when something doesn't feel right, making the change that works for you. And my boss could have easily said no, but by speaking up and communicating what I needed, it was like a very simple change for other people as well.
Yes, that's such a great example that you asked that question. And then probably as a manager, you're not setting a 7:30 meeting. But if someone were to come to you, then you can make that change. So having people like you in a leadership position is so great because then you can change those little things and enable people to live by their values too.
Yep,
Yep.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember when I had 2 kids already. I think my Josie was a baby though, so I had pretty little kids, and I remember I asked this woman who was, I think, 2 levels above me. I was intimidated, and I was like, "How do you do it?" I think she had 3 kids maybe, and she's, "I have a live-in nanny, and my husband stays home, and I usually cry every day on the way home from work." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And I really appreciated her honesty actually, because I was like, I'm seeing all these women in these positions and I'm thinking it must be possible. And even she with a stay at home spouse and a full time nanny was like, I usually cry on the way home from work because I've missed something because
Yeah.
I'm working so much. And I was like, thanks for that. Like it was honestly so helpful. So even if you're not getting somebody who's, oh, here's all the tips and tricks for how to make it work,
Yes.
she was like, no, it still sucks. I'm just
Yep.
higher up here than you, but it still sucks.
Yep.
And that's really helpful to me. It really helped me think, do I want to stay in this industry forever? Do I want to work like this forever?
Yes.
No. No was
Exactly.
the answer in my case.
Exactly. Yes. And that's why one of the tenets of positive psychology is that when something feels off, that's a really good thing, right? That is your body saying, oh, that doesn't feel good. So you hearing that is, that's not what I want to do for the rest of my life. And maybe that kind of spurred or changed something for you too. It's having those. I remember having the same thing where somebody was like, oh, it's perfect. I travel during the week. I come home Thursday. I have all weekend with my kids and then I fly out on Sunday and it's awesome. And I was just thinking, I don't want that.
Yeah. And if that's their values and they like it,
Yes.
great. But if you're
Yep.
listening to that thinking, I do not want that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
I also had a really high up, in fact, she might have been like the boss of all of us. But she was giving us a speech one time for a women's network, and she was like, outsource that which is not memorable. Now, that was very helpful to me. Like things that are not memorable to me are like laundry, stuff like that. And she's giving examples, and she's soccer games when they're 6 years old. And I was like, that is memorable. I put that in the memorable
Yeah.
category. But it was
Yep.
just interesting to see. No judgment on her if that's just not her thing. But for me, I was like, that's never going to get outsourced in my life. But the concept is so good.
Exactly. And that's why the value section is really important. And having that wheel of life is interesting because what my values are not going to be what your values or
Yeah.
somebody else's. And that's okay. And that's totally fine. But it's just being true to your values and your time. Yes, my mornings were chaotic, but I loved it, right? Like I
Yeah.
love the nuances. And that might have worked for somebody else's family. But for me, like I wanted that time.
Okay. So E, what's the E?
Yeah, environment. I came in day 1 of work in the new year, and I just looked at my office, like, my plants, they had already started dying before I left, so it wasn't just because they
With
were
your
there.
soul, they were dying
They were
together.
they were dying together, yeah, so they were gone. I had clutter on my desk that, like, I wasn't able to clean up before leaving for the new year because, of course, that was chaotic. Everything in my office was just pure chaos, and I remember thinking, like, "Okay, Thrive Framework, environments is, like, setting yourself up for success, having that clean environment so that you can make it as peaceful as possible." And so that first day before I, like, opened up any emails, I'm like, "Alright, these plants are gone take those to the nursery when I leave this place. I'm gonna declutter this paperwork, get it off, make sure I have a clean space." I went home and I looked at what books give me a ton of motivation. Like Michelle, I see you have them in the
Yeah.
back. I have Becky Vollmer's book, You're Not Stuck. So it's almost like a mantra of visually, as I'm on my computer, I can see that. I can see Untamed by Glennon Doyle and some other books that are my favorites. There was a leaky ceiling tile that I can call and get it replaced. I did, and within 24 hours, it was gone. So this environment that I was coming into was unwelcoming, and every day I came in and, of course, didn't wanna be there. And just by doing that simple act of making it clean, calm, I started putting on meditation music in the morning as I started my routine. And I remember thinking, "Man, these people are gonna think I'm wild in here," but it brought me so much peace, and it completely changed the way I almost got excited to go, and I hate to even hesitate to say that, but excited, "Oh, look, this plant just grew another leaf and look how it's coming out." And I have
Yes.
my meditation music on, and I remember one of my coworkers coming in and he was like, it feels calm. I like being in here because it feels calm." And I was like, "Yeah, me too." So that's
Such
one.
a great example, and that was, like, 100% in your control, $0, right? Like, you're not
Yep.
buying stuff, you're getting books that you already have at home, and just the mindset shift of, "I'm going to purposefully make this into a place that I like."
Yeah, and, like, from a labor perspective, you talk all about, like, how can you make it where you have all these happy hormones coming up for you, and how do you just make it as clean as possible? So, things that you love, pictures of your kids, which I had those, but, like, just needed a total refresh. Did the whole office rejuvenation and was just like, "Wow." Once I went through the Thrive framework, I'm like, "I can apply this to work. I can apply this to any challenge." It felt really good to feel like all of these things were well within my control. Like you said, they were all free. I had access to change everything that I needed to. I just needed to know that I could do it myself versus sitting in that pity of despair of, "Oh, this is terrible. Everything sucks."
Yes, yes, exactly, and I feel like we're all people will say to me because I talk a lot about, like, decluttering and making your environment a place that you like to be in, people say, "Oh, it doesn't really bother me," and I do think it can be varying degrees of bother, but when your coworker comes in your office and says, "It feels peaceful in here," or I always notice in my house, like, I just redid my TV room, and it just feels good in there, I can't explain it. And now all 3 of us are always hanging out in there, where before I have teenagers, so they just always wanna go to their bedroom. And I'm
Yeah.
not saying 24/7, but they'll come and sit in there. And even if I'm doing something even if we're not all doing the same thing, like, everybody likes to sit in there. It's just making the effort to be like, "I want this to be a place that I love to be, and I feel calm." And then other people can feel it too.
Yeah, exactly. And I would say I'm one of those people that typically I joke like I can thrive in chaos. I don't care if it's cluttered or whatever, but it made such a difference. Like when you walk into a space, and Michelle, I've heard you say this before, but like when you walk into a space and that pile of papers, like I immediately start this to-do list in my head of I need to do that. I need to declutter. I need to give that paper to somewhere. And if I don't just do it right, then that is always going to be the first thing that
Yeah.
clutters my brain as soon as I enter. So just taking care of that, and every day I can come in and it's a fresh slate. Like, I don't have to worry about that. I can worry about the other tasks at hand.
Yes, yes, exactly. Oh, this has been such a great conversation. Thank you so much for sharing all of this with us. One thing I do want to mention is that Karli does speaking engagements too. So if this is the kind of thing that you feel like could apply at your work, whether it's STEM or not, Karli could be a great resource for you. If they do want to reach out to you, where should they find you?
Yeah, absolutely. You can reach out to me on my website. It's www.lifeinlabor.com. That's life, the letter N, and then labor, LABOR. And then if you want to laugh along with me, I post some things out on Instagram as well at Life and Labor, the same spelling. So I
Okay.
always try to post the real stuff that motherhood is fun, but also
Yes.
challenging as well.
Yes. Keeping it real over there for sure. For
Yes,
sure.
exactly.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate your expertise. And that was such a fun topic.
Of course. Yeah. Thank you for all you do. And if you're listening, you're getting a master's in positive psychology. Just go ahead and put it
Just
on your
keep on
resume.
listening.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yep.
Thanks, Karli. Thank you for listening to the Overwhelmed Working Woman podcast. If you want to learn more about my work, head over to my website at michellegothier.com. See you next week.